Welcome back to the Bridesmaids hairstyle series. Today I am going to be showing you how to do a vintage style wave on a bridesmaid where you only have approximately 45 minutes for the look. So I'm going to show you how to still get a similar type of the vintage wave, very close approximation, but get it done in only 45 minutes. And this is what it's going to look like. So keep watching to see how it's done. I've already prepped her hair with a little bit of product before we're starting today. I have some Aquage uplifting foam that I blow dried into the roots really quick, and then some of the Kenra hot spray throughout the lengths before doing a Velcro roller set. You can watch the previous video in the series for the how-to and the step-by-step on that, but that is how her hair is prepped today. If she had just gotten a regular blowout, this is what it would be like. It would just be nice and smooth. It might have a little bit of curl in it. You can go in and you can do the mousse quickly at the root, blow dry it to give it a little bit more volume, and then the Kenra hot spray before we get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be working with a working spray as I go to add just a little bit of extra hold as I curl the hair, because we have only about 45 minutes that we have set aside for a bridesmaid. So we don't have time to do a whole roller set unless you have an assistant that preps everybody that way. So in order to get this style done quickly, we want to have just some product in at the root with that mousse, or even just like a dry texture spray. If you don't have time for that, you can spray a dry texture spray all in the root to give it some volume, give it some lift, and then something throughout the lengths to give it a little bit more hold. But we're also going to be working with that working spray as we curl as well, to give it a little bit more layered hold without having to rely so much on a really heavy hard hold hairspray at the end, because we're not letting these curls cool and set as long as we normally would for a bride's glam waves. We need to rely a little bit more on layering of product and our brush out technique later on. We don't want to weigh the hair down with a bunch of hard hold product. So let's section the hair out. I've decided that I want to do her part over here to this side, but I want to make it a little bit more dramatic because this is going to be a more vintage wave type style. I want to have a deeper part. I don't want to go just off of that mohawk section that I had done. This is also going to help to give a little bit more volume because I've gone just off of where the hair was curled in this direction. I'm now flipping it this way. It's been dried and curled this direction. So by flipping it opposite, I'm making it go against that, and it's going to give it some extra volume because it was dried in the opposite direction. I'm going to go right about here and then back down behind the ear. And that's going to be my front section. And this is going to be curled away from the face. When you're doing a vintage style wave, all of the hair needs to be curled in the same direction in order to lay in those waves perfectly when we brush everything out later. So you need to decide right off the bat where this is going to be sectioned out before you put the curl in. Make sure that you're talking to them and asking them really in depth. Okay, do you want it to this side? Do you want it to that side? Let them see and let them decide. Let them know too, once we make that decision and we start curling, we cannot flip it off to the other side. That's one of the reasons why I like to start with a mohawk and do a little bit of a prep work here. Even if you're just blow drying some mousse and using a Velcro roller and curling the back of the head while that sets, and then coming back to the front, this helps to give you the flexibility of which side and a little bit of extra volume. So all of the hair needs to be curled away from the face, starting from this side all the way around here. This section is going to be curled towards the face, and that's what's going to give it that vintage wave that's going to frame her cheekbones so beautifully. So now that we have this section here, we need to know where the rest of that section is going to continue. It's going to continue across the top of the head, and we have this part back here, which is all going to be curled. And then we have the top, which is all going to be one more section. Okay, so you can see where the front part of the head has been sectioned into two. This small piece here, which is going to be curled around away from the face and tucked behind the ear, and then all of this section, which is going to be around the face. Now we can get started in the back, and I like to just go up row by row. I'm going to section things up and out of the way. And even though there's already a little bit of that Kenra spray in here, I want to add just a little bit more. So I'm going to be taking this Voluminous Touch Memory Spray from Kenra, and it has a hold of 12, so it's a nice working spray. One of the reasons I really like this one is because it also has a lot of shine. When you have dark hair, it's really important, especially on a wave, to have a lot of shine. I like to layer products that have shine in the hair as well. Just a light mist. Don't forget to get underneath. It's going to give it a little bit of hold, and it's going to enhance the shine. Now, for a bridesmaid wave, I'm not going to be taking it and twist wrap and twist wrap and twist wrap and twist wrap. That's going to take too long. The name of the game on this style today is quick. So I'm just going to take a vertical curl section, and I'm going to curl it like this. And I like using a long barrel curler for this because everything is able to touch the roller without being layered on top of any other hair. So I'm going to take it, let it drop into my hand for a second, and then let it hang. And I'm basically going to go across the whole head just like this. I'm going to do vertical style curls, not horizontal curls. So when I brush it out, it has more of an S-shaped wave without having to sit there and do a twisting motion. You guys know I love my Babeless tools. So this is the Babeless Pro Nano Titanium Long Barrel Curler. This is one of my favorites. The only thing that I don't love about it is this part of the handle here is part of the metal, and it gets very hot. So be very careful when you're using this one that you don't accidentally touch it. And when you're also doing vertical curls, particularly when you're starting at the nape here, be really careful. I like to keep my hand up against their exposed neck and the upper part of their back. I don't want to accidentally touch them with my iron. Okay, so you can see I have my first row done. They're all going in the same direction. It's all a vertical style curl. While they're starting to cool, I'm gonna, again, just mist them really quick with the hairspray. Then I'm gonna take the next section down, and I'm gonna continue doing that up the head. Since I'm doing a vertical curl, I want my sections to be a little bit wider this direction. I don't want them really skinny because I'm not taking them down. So this is a little bit wider than the width of the barrel. So typically when you are curling horizontally, you don't want the width of your section to be wider than your barrel. But since we're going vertically, I need a little bit more length. If it's too skinny, it's not going to work. Now, it's really important that when you have a conversation with a bridesmaid who shows you a vintage wave look, to basically have what I call a come to Jesus. You have to explain to them that that is a 90-minute to 2-hour or more hairstyle, and that time frame is not reserved for a bridal party member, that you have 45 minutes. Let them know what the limitations of that means. It means that the curl style will be very similar. However, it is not going to have the same volume as a look that they're probably showing you because it most likely includes extensions. And the longevity of the look really depends on two main things. but there is a little third factor. The most important thing is how well their hair holds curl. When you are doing it for a bride, you are taking a lot more time with each of the curls. You're letting them cool, you're letting them set differently. It's going to help to lock in the curl because you have the time to go slower with your curling. You're also going to be using extensions. Extensions help to hold the longevity of the curl. If the natural hair does not hold curl very well, extensions will. And because they're sandwiched in between all of the natural hair, it holds everything all locked into place, and those waves are going to last all day. With a bridesmaid, we're not doing extensions. We're not taking that time with the curling process. We are doing it much more abbreviated. So she's going to have to understand that the hair is not going to look or last like the picture that she is wanting. So if her hair does not hold a curl very well at all, and we all know that we've been there on a wedding day and somebody will say, I just want simple curls, I want my hair all down. And the first question we naturally ask as a hairstylist is, how well does your hair hold curl? 95% of the time, they're going to go, oh, it doesn't hold curl very well at all. And our first instinct is to go, why the hell do you want your hair down then if it's not going to hold? They assume that we have magic and that we can break the laws of physics. Unfortunately, we can't. So that's why we really need to be honest with them and have this come to Jesus and say, look, these styles that you see on Pinterest and these photos on brides where it's looking perfect and lasting all day is because of XYZ factors. We don't have the time, we don't have the extensions, etc. So here's what it's going to look like for you. And we ask them, are you okay with this? Do you understand it's not going to look exactly the same and it's not going to last as long? And if they say yes, then we say, okay, then we are going to move on and we will do this for you as long as you understand. The second factor is the haircut. The hair really shouldn't have layers. It's not going to look the same. It's not going to all lay together the same. So you need to take a look at their haircut and let them know whether or not this is something that you would recommend or how that haircut is going to impact the final look. If they have a lot of layers, you're going to have to let them know it's really hard to have all of the curls lay together in this wave pattern and stay together when you have layers, because the shorter layers are going to pop out and they're going to sit there on top and it's going to break apart. We can do a modified version where it's going to look a little bit more piecey. Are you okay with that? So each of these factors, we want to ask them and say, hey, this is what we're working with. This is how it's going to impact either how the style looks or the longevity. Are you okay with that? And every time they say, yes, I'm okay with that, we move on to the next factor that's going to impact either how it looks or how it lasts until we get to the point where they're like, yes, it's a go, and then we actually start doing the styling. The third factor is also going to be the weather. If it is a humid day, we have to explain to them water in the air is going to be like water in a shower. When you get your hair wet, all the curl that you have, your hair is going to revert back to its natural state. If your hair is naturally curly, as soon as you get it wet in the shower, it doesn't matter if you smoothed it out and you've got these beautiful blowout curls, as soon as it gets wet, it goes back to your natural curl pattern. Or if your hair just gets frizzy in the humidity, there's not a lot that we can do to combat that. So we have to ask them, okay, how does your hair react in humidity? What does it do? Does it frizz up? Does it get flat, et cetera, et cetera? And we have to just let them know we can't fight science. There's only so much we can do. If it's really humid out and this is the style that they want, or if it's hot out and they are going to have their hair down, it's going to be laying against the back of their neck, it's going to be laying against their shoulders, and the front section is going to be laying against their face or very close to their face. Are they going to be the type of person who has to constantly tuck their hair behind their ear, brush their hair out of their face? So this style not only takes a long time to do, but it requires a lot of thorough consultation to make sure that people understand what they're getting into. It is a very high maintenance style. Most bridesmaids don't have the time commitment for that. They're there to have fun and they're there to support their friend on their wedding day. So it's usually not a good look for them for that. But if you still get to the point where they're like, no, I understand, I'm fine, this is what I want, that's when we start to do this abbreviated version of the style. So understanding how to have a proper consultation with somebody is just as important as understanding how to actually execute the look and how to do so in an abbreviated amount of time. So this is what it's going to look like once we've got the back of the curls in. I did about 4 rows up the back of the head, curled everything all in one direction, and I did a vertical flat wrap curl on the long barrel curling iron. And in between each layer, as I went up, I hit it with the volume touch from Kenra to add some shine and to add some hold. Now we're going to start on the sides. We are going to start on the heavier side where there's more hair and the hair that's going to be coming towards the face. This is really going to impact the overall look of the style. So we really want to make sure that these curls stay and have the longest amount of time to set. So we're going to start with this and we will end with this smaller section on the back because one, it's a smaller section. We're going to be able to curl through it faster, but it's not going to sit in the setting position and cool for as long as everywhere else on the head. It's also going to get tucked behind the ear, so it is not as important that everything stay as perfect. So again, we're going to start out by doing vertical curl sections towards the face. Everything is still going to be coming around this way. And again, around the ear, we want to put our hand in between the iron and their skin so that they don't accidentally get touched with the iron and get burned. I'm just going to slowly release this, let it fall into my hand. I don't like to release the curl and let it slap against the skin because the curl itself is still going to be hot and I don't want to burn them either. I always let them know, okay, I'm working right around your face now. I'm going to need you to stay really, really still. This iron is very hot and I do not want to give you any 3rd-degree burns today. Again, I'm letting the curl fall into my hand so that a hot curl doesn't come whacking and slap her in the ear or in the side of the neck. I'm going to let it release. And you can see that it's all falling in this same kind of pattern, all of these curls next to each other because my sections, I'm paying attention to where the other sections are. Now on the round of the head, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's right around where these other sections were. So that way when I brush everything out, the curls are all starting and stopping in relatively the same places. All right, this section here is about where the mohawk section ended. I'm going to split that about in half. Okay, and I'm going to do one. I want to kind of line it up with where this was. So I'm going to do this first curl here. So it's laying right over the top of that section. And then this section is a little bit wide, so I'm going to split this. Because I want a lot of volume in the front here, I'm really going a little bit slower and paying more attention to make sure that I'm heating up that root area really nicely to keep that volume and to keep that curl at the root here. You can see from the front what this section looks like. We have two big curls right here. I made sure that I stayed really on base when I was curling them and got a lot of heat in at the root area. I want to reactivate some of that volumizing mousse, and I really want to make sure that the curl starts nice and close to the root area so we get more volume. The last section here is these pieces by the face. I'm going to split that in two. The top one's going to be a little bit shorter than the bottom section because I want it to try and line up with the crown area in the back so everything flows together more nicely. And I'm going to split it in two and curl back again away from the face. Okay, so real time at this point, the timer on my video is at about 31 minutes and 42 seconds. There have been at least 5 minutes of refilming, moving the camera back and forth, things like that. So in reality, this took me approximately 25 minutes to curl. So in a 45-minute appointment time, I've used up a little more than half. I'll have about 20 minutes to go through and start brushing out and setting these waves. So we're going to start in the back here because we want these front pieces, since they were curled last, we want them a little bit longer to finish cooling. And I'm going to start with a comb that looks like this. This is some wide teeth comb, and then there is a little pick section at the back. And I'm going to start to break up and comb through these curls. I'm going to start with the bottom ones, and I'm just combing through everything gently. And then I'm going to flip and start to brush through. I've combed through about the first row of curls. All right. Is it perfect? No, these are quick waves, but you can see how curling vertically has started to build that wave pattern. There's a little bit of hair from the top row, so it's distorting it a little bit, but we'll keep brushing everything together. So you can see how it's giving that S pattern look without having to take the time to do the wrap twist. So I'm just gonna do a light layer of the working spray as I go, because I don't want it to start to get too crunchy. I'm going to start to separate each section out and gently comb through first with the tail end of this comb to smooth and start breaking everything up. Again, another layer of the working spray. And then the top section here. So you can see we've got that vintage wave effect. But if you take a look at the ends here, because she does have some layers in her hair, the ends are not going to be this solid, uniform kind of wave at the end. And they're going to be a little bit thin. So that's one of those things where you explain to them, this is what's going to happen with your layers at the end. It's going to be a little bit more of a piecey look. But I also think that also makes it a little bit more modern because most people have some type of layering in their hair. So we have the back all kind of brushed out. And as you can see, there's a lot of beautiful shine happening because we've been using that hairspray that has the shine in it. So we're going to do the same thing for the side. We're going to start out by combing things out with this end of the comb to break up that curl. And we're going to start to comb it together. And again, because she has layers, the way that this flows back over the shoulder, it may or may not connect perfectly. But because I paid attention to where the sections were in the back of the head and to here, I'm getting it to come back and connect pretty good for it being a quick curl and on layers. All right, now we have these last two pieces here. Gently comb them out and then start to comb them down into the style. They flow back really, really nicely. I love this hairspray because it has shine and it has hold, but it's not super sticky. So I can use it to lay things down in the space that I want it to stay in without having to worry about if I touch the hair, it's gonna stick to my hand and start to break up the style. It's one of the downsides to a harder hold hairspray, something like the Kenra 25, which we'll use to refine and lock everything in afterwards. It dries much more slowly and it's very, very sticky. So if I were to spray it and then try and smooth things down, it would stick to my hands and I'd start to pop off all of these little flyaways, which would just be a pain to work back into the style. So I like to use lighter hold hairsprays that are less sticky and fast drying to work in my layers to layer up that hold rather than just going in with something super hard hold. All right, now let's get working on the front here. I'm going to take these sections and pull them up and away. And very gently comb out these guys. Without getting her ear. And again, because we paid attention to where we sectioned in the back, this is all flowing in the same direction together. Now, usually this is the section that gets split from the back because it's going to live in front of the shoulder. So just pay attention to that when you're brushing everything out, that you're not swooping it all back so much. And then it's going to break up the curl and make everything messy later on because this section is in the back and this section is the front. So right now, because this is what's going to be in the front, I want to make sure that these two sections are laying together and more. So we're going to take a little bit more time on these front sections. But still, real time, we're at about 44 minutes right now. On a wedding day, I'd be moving a lot faster than this. But we're still getting that really vintage similar effect in an abbreviated time frame. Because we had that conversation with the client beforehand about longevity and how accurate the look is going to be, we're already managing expectations. So we didn't take this whole time and then have her sit there and go, it doesn't look exactly like the photo, or have her get upset afterwards that it didn't last as long. If we don't do any teasing and we just bring it right up to the front, we can see we have a nice soft amount of volume, and we can pull it forward a little bit to give it a little bit more in the face. So we still have that vintage look, but we don't have quite as much volume, and it all still comes together really nicely. Okay, so now here's where we're gonna come in with the Kenra 25, and we're going to refine everything and lock it all into place. So at first I wanna start with these little front pieces where she has some little baby hairs. I wanna hit those guys, take my comb, and make sure that they're all laying in the right direction. Same thing here. I'm gonna take this and we're gonna tuck it behind the ear. And I'm gonna use the back of my hand to lift the hair up from the face. And I'm gonna hit the top. And as I go around the head and I'm hitting it with the Kenra 25, I want to make sure that I am laying everything down together, so that it's all flowing in that wave pattern. And as you come down each section, you just hold it in place with your hand and gently comb down. If your hands have got a lot of product on them and they're starting to get a little bit sticky, you can spray and then use the can, and that kind of fits right in that curve there. Okay, so this is the final look. Is it a perfect vintage wave? No, but it is pretty good for a bridesmaid for 45 minutes. They can still get a lot of that same effect, but it's not going to take you a full 90 minutes or 2 hours. It's what we're working with. We've had the conversation. They know how it's going to look a little bit different. They know how it's going to last, but we're still giving them a close enough approximation of what they want. They still get that same effect. Now, if for some reason you don't have hairsprays that have a lot of shine in them, or you still want just a little bit more shine, you can always use something like a shine spray. Just be very careful with that because these have a lot of oils in them, and that can start to break down the alcohols and the hold in the hairspray. So that's why I prefer to use hairspray that has built-in shine to it, because the formula is created so that it doesn't impact the longevity of the hairspray, but you're still getting shine. But you can always just go back over the top of it and hit it with a little bit of shine. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna love how to take a style just like this, where the hair is in this vintage wave kind of pattern, and turn it into a modern sleek half up. So make sure you click the next video to watch how that one's done.